So Za'Darius Smith is the next one, huh? All right. All right. Well, at least we don't have to worry about him winning any Super Bowls. Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I am your host, John Delray. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get going, I have just a couple of announcements. One, hit like, hit share, hit subscribe, smash those buttons, and let's share Lombardi Time Brews around. We do have a giveaway going on right now. I'm going to cover this first before we dive into the news of the day. Today is the last day that you can enter this giveaway. I need to get these questions in by midnight tonight. That's Wednesday night, midnight being Lambo time, so that I can answer them for tomorrow's episode. Tomorrow's episode is going to be Lombardi Time Brews' first ever mailbag. So I'm going to be going through those questions that I have been sent. Questions have kind of consistently come in over the last couple of days. I'm going to be going through, choosing a bunch, and then answering them in tomorrow's episode, as well as covering the news. To help get people to send in questions to the mailbag and to help us build this group a little bit, I decided to do our first giveaway, and so I'm going to recap what those items are. That would be a Willie Davis 8x10. Again, sorry for the glare. Looks like that's a good angle right there if you're looking on YouTube. In addition to that Willie Davis 8x10, there's going to be a James Lofton signed card, a Leroy Butler signed card, and then lastly, an A.J. Dillon Select Rookie. So, if you are so inclined, all you got to do is just head to Twitter. My handle is @JohnDelray. That's @JONDELRAY. Check that out on Twitter. Join some of the discussions that we have going on there. Retweet one of the giveaway tweets. DM me a question. I'll answer tomorrow, and then you could win. The same winner is getting all 4 of these prizes, which includes 3 NFL Packer Hall of Fame autographs. So just a little thanks to those who have been listening so far. It's been really cool to see. Today is only, day 13 of me doing this podcast every day, and it has steadily grown as time has gone. Really excited about that. Really excited about what the future holds for us as well, including one little bit of news that I can share now. We have successfully secured a domain, which means within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be building a website, and there's going to be a website for Lombardi Time Brews. And then my other venture, which is called Clubhouse Sports. So I'm going to be sharing details with you as we get much closer. Eventually, there's going to be a blog portion there where I and hopefully a few others actually write content, not just do this video every day, but have articles for you to read as well. Different ways that we can keep the discussions around the Green Bay Packers going, and we can all show our fandom, show our love for the green and gold, and do it all together. So really exciting stuff, some big developments happening. Some I can share, some I can't yet, but website is one of them. I'm very excited about that. So you want to be a part of the fun, you want to enter this giveaway, head to Twitter, retweet, share, etc. Just do the things. It's all there on Twitter. Just do the things, and then you could win some great prizes. So diving into today's content, just one bit of news for you today being Wednesday, or for Matt, our New Zealand listener. I don't know if it's Thursday there by you yet. Maybe we're getting close. Maybe. I don't know. I got to look up the time zone stuff so I actually know when you're at. But as of today's practice, Alan Lazard did not practice again. He did some running with the rehab group. Matt Schneiderman of The Athletic said that he seemed to be running fine. Matt LaFleur in the press conference this morning actually revealed what's going on with Lazard. Turns out it's got to be some kind of foot or ankle injury, because all LaFleur said was that he was stepped on. He was stepped on last week, Must have been at practice. We know that getting stepped on with those cleats can hurt like hell, can cause some damage. So hopefully he's back by Sunday to take on the Vikings. Hopefully he's able to get in at least with Friday's walkthrough something. But Alan Lazard still not practicing today, just running off to the side with the rehab group. One speculative note about that, if Alan Lazard is not able to heal up by Sunday, you got to think Juwann Winfree is going to be a practice squad elevation for Lazard. To me, it just makes all the sense in the world. Winfree may be an elevation anyway if they're looking for further depth. We know that Aaron Rodgers campaigned for Winfree to be on the 53, made comments after the 53 was complete that he understands what Gutekunst did, keeping some of the younger ones instead of guys who are maybe better right now. We may have seen Winfree in week 1 anyway, but now if Lazard can't go, I feel like it's almost a guarantee that we're going to see Juwann Winfree in week 1. So again, we just have to see how this progresses over the next couple of days with Alan Lazard. Moving on to that, there was some things today, some things said that need to be talked about, because this is just the next in this big trend of Vikings players who we dump. And then the Vikings go and write a burn book and decide to talk about us, which is mean. Greg Jennings obviously did it before. Even in the long line of guys who have defected from Green Bay to Minnesota, you're looking at Brett Favre, Ryan Longwell, the list goes on. The latest one is Za'Darius Smith. Now, to recap a rough timeline here for Za'Darius, he signed a contract in Green Bay. It would have been... He completed 3 seasons in Green Bay, 2 of which were absolutely monstrous seasons. I mean, he played incredibly well. And then, all of a sudden, we saw him at a lot of Bucs games as they were going for the championship, which is, of course, not a bad thing. In fact, it's great PR for the Packers. You see Bakhtiari, Rodgers has done it, etc. Cobb's been there. Jordan Love has been there, but he sat, in the back row of the stadium. But Za'Darius... we saw him there, and then training camp arrived, and Za'Darius had this back injury that no one really seemed to know about. But he had this back injury, and then all of a sudden, he wasn't voted captain. Now, that's not necessarily, a massive detriment. You can only have so many captains. But he was a captain back-to-back years, which means to not get it in year 3 means something's going on. He didn't get voted on as a captain in year 3. He then made that infamous Instagram post with a drawing of a captain's medallion in gold and diamonds and all that stuff. That he said he was going to go make on his own because the Packers would make him a captain. He didn't get voted as one. And then he played in week 1 last year in limited action. They decided to shut him down for the surgery. And we didn't see him again really until the playoffs. And even during the course of last season, there was a lot of consternation, confusion about where was he? The team was winning all these games, was doing incredibly well. Z was nowhere to be found. He wasn't on the sidelines at games. Supposedly he had flown off and just gone and rehabbed on his own. But there were a lot of questions. Then all of a sudden when he showed up in December again, it was like, oh, he's coming back. And then he still didn't come back until really like the playoff game. And we know that the relationship between the Packers and the players and Z deteriorated. We know that. What we don't totally understand is why. We don't know yet about that back injury. We may never. A lot of the speculation, pure rumor mill stuff is that he hurt it at the Bucs game. But we don't know that. We don't know what happened personality-wise, because if a dude hurts his back, other players on the team just aren't going to turn on you for an injury. Something's got to be going on. So he wasn't made a captain. Why? We don't know. And we may never find out from the Green Bay side of things. All of this leads up to this morning, where Za'Darius Smith, in an interview, described partially why he wanted to sign with the Vikings. Again, this offseason was incredibly weird behavior from Z. We had the Packers, who Gutekunst mentioned that it was going to be tough to keep him, but by all accounts, the Packers did offer him a restructured deal, almost like Preston Smith. where they pull back on the salary, make up for it in incentives. That's the speculation, as though it's what it could have been. Well, he obviously didn't take that. So the Packers release Z and his massive cap number. And then all of a sudden, he signs on to a deal with Baltimore, his original team in the NFL. But then all of a sudden, he doesn't take it, and he's gone, and the deal is off the table. And then a few weeks later, he emerges, he's signing a deal with Minnesota. How, again, this all happened, no one seems to know. But it's the next thing in this line of like odd and inconsistent behavior from a guy who at one time was a leader in Green Bay's locker room. So all of this, again, leads to the quote of the day, which is Za'Darius Smith being the next one in the long line of Vikings who are saying, the Packers suck. So here is his exact quote. This is part of a much larger quote. I just wanted to hone in on this excerpt. Before I get into this, I am going to say he did talk about hoping to have certain goals with the Vikings, that he and Danielle Hunter have these goals. Of course, they want to win a Super Bowl, etc. So don't think that he went to Minnesota just to play Green Bay, as I'm seeing online a bunch today. Read the full quote. You get a better idea. Yeah, of course he hones in on Green Bay, but like he wants to win a Super Bowl. Like, let's not get stupid. So here's the exact quote. And he said, "Walking past me, not saying anything. Z, how's your back doing? There was none of that when I came to Green Bay. As you can see, that adds on to why I'm on the other side, so I can go back 2 times a year." So what he's saying is when he actually came back in December with that back injury, having rehabbed, etc., and he's walking through the halls of 1265 Lombardi and just no one is talking to him. Nope, we are not talking to you. You hurt your back. I don't know. Something is tremendously off with this story. We will probably never hear from the Green Bay side exactly what it is that happened. Z decided to air this grievance. But again, this isn't the whole picture, because Z, if this is the case, I mean, why you not a captain, bud? I don't know. You don't get made not a captain just because of injuries, so you done did something to the rest of the team. And this quote, while showing a bit of your side, does not show the whole picture. Now, the one thing that I will say is it's possible that he's actually talking all the way back in August. The fact that he showed up back to training camp with a back injury and was just straight up ignored doesn't exactly help his case. So, when asked about it today in the press conference, LaFleur made mention of he has great respect for Z as the player. Helped do a lot of great things in Green Bay. And there's a full quote that LaFleur gave too, but I think the really important part is he said that he has great respect for Za'Darius Smith as the player. What he didn't say was, I have great respect for Za'Darius Smith. Or he's a great guy. Or I enjoyed working with him. Methinks that was revealing by Mr. LaFleur. So, this is what we got. This is what we know to this point in the never-ending drama that is 1265 Lombardi and former players who go on to be Vikings. This is just what they do. Next up, you just know next week he'll say something about Green Bay brainwashing people just like Jennings did. That's fine. If we did really that great of a job of brainwashing everyone, maybe the Vikings would have a Super Bowl since they take all of our rejects, but they don't yet. So, moving on, next I wanted to talk about the depth chart a little bit. The unofficial depth chart was released by the Packers yesterday, and there's just a few notes. Not a ton to talk over. Most of it is as expected, but a couple little things that deserve our attention. For one, Aaron Jones still listed as running back 1, A.J. Dillon running back 2. Not at all a surprise, but for our 2 1A running backs, as LaFleur refers to them, they still list Jones first. Beyond that, you do have Samori Toure. I thought this was interesting. The number 7 wide receiver, Samori Toure, is actually listed behind Randall Cobb and Amari Rodgers on the depth chart. When you're looking at the depth chart, there's 3 different lines for wide receiver. One has Alan Lazard up at the front, the other has Sammy Watkins up at the front, and then number 3 has Randall Cobb up at the front. leading you to logically believe that that line is reserved for the slot guys, who are the slot wide receivers. And even though it doesn't deliberately say that, it certainly is what you're led to believe. So you've got Cobb, Amari Rodgers, and then Samori Toure, which I thought was very interesting because when you hear a lot about Toure and where he was playing in the preseason, it wasn't just as a slot guy. So interesting that they would list him at least in this place on this depth chart. Again, not making anything about this, just interesting. Moving on from that, a couple other interesting things, mostly among the offensive line. Zach Tom is listed as the number 2 at left guard. Not right guard, not right tackle, right guard was a lot more open than left guard, but yet towards the end of camp he started getting quite a bit left guard snaps to be John Runyon Jr.'s backup. So he's listed as the number 2 left guard. Over at center, Jake Hansen listed as the number 2 center. Not listed on the right guard depth chart. Right guard, you've got Royce Newman and then Sean Ryan. Right tackle, Elton Jenkins, Rasheed Walker. Now, this isn't Madden because Lord knows if this was Madden, you'd have Royce Newman at right guard 1, then right guard 2, and then you could duplicate guys on positions. Well, the Green Bay Packers with 10 offensive linemen didn't do that. They just declared starter and then number 2. Realistically, we understand that if they're matching how they did it in the preseason, if Royce Newman gets hurt, Jake Hansen may very well step right into the right guard spot. Even though he's listed at center 2, he may be ahead of Sean Ryan. Or Zach Tom could flip from left guard to right guard. We don't know. So keep that in mind. This isn't a Madden depth chart where you can just put guys all over the place numerous times. They chose just a 1 and a 2 for every single spot. So just interesting to see where they put some of these number 2s. This by no means is the pecking order, and it is unofficial, but nonetheless, interesting. Very interesting. Same thing on the defensive line. Kenny Clark still listed as a nose tackle. Now, we know last year, we've talked on the pod already in previous days about how Kenny Clark more than doubled his snap total over the tackles last year, being used more as a 3-4 end and less of a nose tackle. But here, again, he's listed as the nose tackle. In fact, the entire starting defensive line is Dean Lowry, Kenny Clark, Jerron Reed. The number 2 defensive line being Devontae Wyatt, TJ Slayton, and again, Devontae Wyatt is listed with Jonathan Ford as the number 3 nose tackle. Now, in practicality, Kenny Clark may very well shift over to end quite a bit. TJ Slayton get his nose tackle snaps. So, again, how this plays out, who knows? Only the Packers really do. But Kenny Clark still listed as the predominant nose tackle on the roster, even though I think we're going to see him play end quite a lot of bit. Other than that, going through the rest of the secondary, the specialists, nothing hugely of note, besides the fact that Amari Rodgers is listed as the number 1 on both punt returner and kick returner. We basically already knew this, but it's never been confirmed in writing that Amari Rodgers was for sure the number 1, the starter, if you will, as both returner spots. But here we have it. Amari Rodgers is the number 1, both kick returner and punt returner. And then one last thing that I want to make note of, on the Packers depth chart, they do list which coaches will be where, meaning which ones are going to be up in the coach's box and which ones are going to be down on the sideline. Incredibly interesting this year to me that all 3 coordinators are actually going to be down on the sideline. That's Joe Barry, Rich Bisaccia, and then Adam Stenavich. Now, Bisaccia, I'm not shocked by at all. He's brand new. It's what he did in Vegas when he was a head coach in Vegas. He has that interim head coaching experience. The sideline, and 2, I'll say with how hands-on he is as a coach, sideline makes sense for him. I think he would have a very hard time sitting in a box, actually, not having access to his people at all times. So, totally makes sense. Joe Barry down being on the sideline. Slightly the same thing, but to a slightly different degree. So down on the sideline. But then Adam Stenavich. The reason why this is interesting is not anything to do with Stenavich at all. It has almost entirely to do with the fact that his predecessor, Nathaniel Hackett, now Denver's head coach, but his predecessor used to sit up in the box. Now, Steno is going to be down on the sideline. So, again, not saying one way or the other, whether it's good, bad. It probably comes all down to personal preference and how Steno wants to work. It's just different. And that's all. So that covers the news of today. Before we go, though, I did just want to give one really quick shout out. Dusty Evilly. He is another content creator surrounding the Packers. He is an absolute film nut. He appears on the Pack a Day podcast once a week. I have been following him for a few years on Twitter. Not only is he of great intelligence in breaking down film, but he seems like one of the nicest human beings on the planet. And I enjoy following him just for that reason, his positivity, his downright pleasantness as I see him interact with people. But the reason why I bring him back, or the reason why I bring him up, besides being a fellow horror movie aficionado, is because he just started a new series that looks at very, I don't want to say elementary, and not beginner, but a very instructional look at what happens on the field. So if you're at all interested, today he covered some of the terminology around defense specifically. So if you're at all interested, check it out. Follow him on Twitter. He deserves all the attention. He does excellent work. I have learned a lot from following him over the years. Been following him well before I ever decided to dive into this world of podcasting or anything. But seems like a great guy, someone that we should herald in this world, and someone who deserves a follow. So go check it out. Learn about the terminology, the exact X's and O's of what happens on the field. Give Dusty a follow. So that's all I have for today. That's the end of Lombardi Time Brews. Episode 13 now is in the books. Don't forget about our giveaway. It closes tonight. So please follow me on Twitter at John Delray, JONDELRAY, and retweet. Get yourself some Packer autographs, and have a great day.